Hello? 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 Oh, we just like to welcome everyone tonight. We are still waiting on some people, but we don't want to wait much longer, so we'll get started and they can join us as they come in. We know that all of you are very busy people, so we really, really appreciate that you've taken the time to come meet with us this evening. We'd like to give some shout outs and thanks, first of all. First of all, to the mayor's office and Provo City staff who have been and continue to be great partners as we work to better the city for all residents. Some of these issues get complex, so we thank them for their willingness to offer expertise and support as we work through them. We make a great team together. Second, we'd like to give a quick shout out to our state legislatures who have passed meaningful legislation in recent years in the housing space. Most notably, the affordable housing tools of HB 572, SB 206, SB 268, SB 168, and HB 13. Additionally, we'd like to thank the state for the 2022 funding that is included in the HB 462. We love funded mandates, which created the Ken C. Gardner Housing Affordability Dashboard, which was instrumental in the making of this summit. We're also grateful for the University City exemption regarding ADU allowance. Now, we're excited to share some of Provo's housing policy initiatives and discuss how we can align city efforts with state support to create attainable homeownership opportunities in the city. Recent economic challenges such as high interest rates, increased material and infrastructure costs, increased costs and complexity in building financing and insurance, and overall housing supply shortages in the state have impacted the city of Provo. We are seeing an urgent need for more housing, especially attainable owner-occupied housing. Many families and individuals in Provo want to put down roots, but are struggling to find homes they can afford. The increased cost of housing and lack of supply is forcing many families to relocate to other cities. Many single-family homes in Provo are being rented rather than owned, causing instability in our neighborhoods and our schools. Today, we will cover what our goals are, what we are currently doing to achieve those goals, our roadblocks, and what you can do to help us overcome these roadblocks. Our primary housing goal in Provo is very straightforward. We want to increase the number of attainable owner-occupied homes available to individuals and families. This includes a mix of housing types, single-family homes, townhomes, condominiums, at price points that are attainable for moderate and middle-income households. The current housing market has made ownership out of reach for many. We've seen rapid price increases and homes being purchased by investors and turned into rental properties. In fact, 61% of housing units in Provo are rented, while statewide the number is 30%. The trend is especially concerning for us because it limits opportunities for local families to buy and stay in Provo long term. We believe home ownership is a crucial part of fostering stronger communities where people are invested in their neighborhoods. To achieve our goal of ensuring more new builds are offered for sale, Provo City is taking several proactive steps to increase the number of owner-occupied homes in new housing developments. These include utilizing development agreements to ensure owner occupancy and leveraging city-owned property to work with developers to increase for-sale housing construction. As planning staff has been stressing the council's interest and desire for more owner-occupied developments, developers have been proffering agreements to guarantee that. These agreements are critical as they hold developers to their promises and are memorialized on the title of the property, one of the few tools to ensure and encourage owner occupancy. One of the most impactful strategies is leveraging city-owned property to collaborate directly with developers. By partnering with private developers, we can guide housing projects to focus on building homes that are for sale rather than rent. Much of the cost associated with building is the land. By partnering with developers to build housing on city-owned land, projects that otherwise would not pencil can come to fruition. Provo has several significant development projects in the pipeline that reflect these priorities. For example, we have the Buckley Draw development. It is located near the foothills of the mountain and will include homes that are designated as owner occupancy, helping us address the need for affordable family housing. The city partnered with a developer to develop a 110-unit single-family home development, and this project will be all for sale units in price points from $575 to $750. Additionally, the city is in the planning stages for a housing development near Provo High School on city-owned land. Preliminary proposal and estimates show a mix of housing types could be built there, including 21 affordable single-family homes, 9 affordable townhomes, 27 market-rate single-family homes, 10 market-rate townhomes, and 7 market-rate lots. The preliminary idea here is to have units be held in a land trust that would be organized by the Provo Housing Authority through their entity, the Utah Community Land Trust. Quickly, I'd like to invite Sarah Van Cleve, who is the director of the Provo Housing Authority and the director of Utah Community Land Trust, to come speak to that for a few minutes.
Hello. Can everybody see me? I'm just kidding. Okay, so I'm Sarah. I'm from Provo City Housing, and post-pandemic, my predecessor realized that the housing needs were changed. PCHA had already established Utah Regional Housing, which is our nonprofit. And under the guidance of URH, we created Utah Community Land Trusts. So I have 3 jobs, 1 paycheck, just to be clear. Okay, I see a lot of familiar faces. I know a lot of you have heard my spiel about my land trust, but the quick story is when you build properties in a land trust, the land is held in perpetuity in the trust under a 99-year lease. So we are able to remove the cost of that land from the price of the home. Just to do simple math, land comes in at about 1/3 of the price of the home. So if we can build on properties where we can maintain the property, sell just the home, we can introduce home ownership to the most important people in our town. And those would be like our emergency responders, teachers, anybody that's not, making that big item, big salary. And the other thing that I want to really point out, and it's super important that you walk away with this today, is that it's Utah Community Land Trust that's doing this. It's a subsidiary of our nonprofit. It's not the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority does all kinds of other housing in the city, which I'm sure you're well aware of. But we really want to preface this under Utah Community Land Trust. We are excited about it. We have a project in our back pocket that we're working on, which would be 6 townhomes. We are going to build workforce housing. The definition of workforce housing is not housing built so people can work there. It's by design, not luxury housing. It's not big fancy housing. Land trusts are not meant to make a windfall. They're meant to provide home ownership for people who would not otherwise qualify in today's market. So I'm excited. I'm excited that this is a possibility for us to develop properties in the city of Provo for the people that want to live and work here. And it's so important to have that connection, kids going to the same school for the whole duration of their education, the stability of the community. It's just a win-win. So if you have any questions, just reach out to me. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. So these projects illustrate our commitment to creating a more sustainable housing market in Provo. So by collaborating with developers and strategically using our own land, we are ensuring that more homes will be built for long-term ownership, giving more Provo families the opportunity to move from renting to home ownership and start building equity. Now, the council wants renters with a desire to buy a house to have options within reach. This means more than just increasing the supply of homes for sale. It requires a specific programs and policies that address the unique financial barriers that many renters face, such as saving for a down payment or affordable closing costs, which are often out of reach due to the prohibitive costs of rent. We recognize that while rental housing is a necessary part of our housing landscape, it should not be the end of the line for those who do desire to buy their own home. At the same time, we want to ensure that the available homes align with the income level and moderate income households. This involves a careful balancing act, building enough supply to meet demand and keeping prices within an affordable range. To help renters in Provo transition into homeownership, we've implemented several targeted programs that directly address the financial barriers that many renters face. One of our most successful initiatives is the Home Purchase Plus program. Now, this is funded by HUD and administered by the city. This program provides financial assistance to qualify first-time home buyers, helping them cover down payments and closing costs. So, for example, this could be up to $40,000 for someone of 80% or below AMI, or $20,000 for someone 90 to 140 of AMI. Additionally, we're following through on our moderate income housing strategies, focusing on policies and programs that increase the availability of affordable homes. We have completed or begun 9 of these strategies, and I'll just highlight a couple of them. First of all, we have allowed more ADUs and reduced the regulations on our ADUs within residential areas. We have also approved smaller lots for single-family homes. An example of that is the Buckley Draw development that I mentioned earlier. Also, we have rezoned for higher density to support moderate income housing. To ensure our housing policies are effective, we are in the process of rewriting Provo's zoning code. Our current code was written for a different era, and it doesn't always support our modern housing goals. By modernizing the zoning code, we can better align with the city's general plan and make housing more accessible and affordable. One key goal of the rewrite is to encourage the development of diverse housing types, including smaller, more affordable units like townhomes and duplexes. These housing types are critical for first-time home buyers and moderate income families who may not be able to afford traditional single-family lots. This zoning update will also simplify the development process, reducing barriers for developers who are committed to building owner-occupied homes. By doing this, we're creating a more flexible and responsive housing system that meets the needs of today's residents while planning for the future. 22% of single-family homes and 58% of townhomes are rented in the city. Over the years, we've seen a growing trend of investors purchasing homes, particularly in single-family neighborhoods, and turning them into rentals. This is problematic because it drives up home prices, making it harder for local families to purchase homes. Additionally, high rental turnover can disrupt neighborhood stability and community cohesion. Our goal is to reverse the trend by encouraging homeowners to occupy these properties themselves. We believe the owner-occupied homes foster stronger, more connected neighborhoods where residents are invested in the long-term well-being of the community. Provo is implementing policies aimed at curbing investor influence in single-family neighborhoods. One of our strategies to address this is to enforce tenant rental caps on single-family homes. We currently have a cap of either 3 unrelated individuals or 1 family limit in each dwelling in most of the areas of the city. Now, we do have different zoning for student areas of the city with student housing, but by limiting the number of unrelated renters allowed per house, it makes these properties less attractive to investors looking to maximize rental income. This creates more opportunities for local families to buy homes and build long-term roots in Provo. In addition to long-term rental investors, we've also seen upticks in short-term rental investors in our single-family and even multifamily condo developments. We recently passed an ordinance that will ramp up short-term rental enforcement by not allowing short-term rental sites to collect payment unless a short-term rental is officially licensed by the city. We've also capped the number of short-term rental units at 10% for any given multifamily building. At the same time, we recognize the need for rental housing. In the past several years, Provo City has approved and entitled over 1,100 apartment units to increase the stock of apartment units which are yet to be built. In conclusion, Provo is committed to addressing the housing challenges our residents are facing. However, we need your help to overcome the challenges we are facing, and Councillor George Handley will now address that.
Thank you, Catrice. I thought maybe it would be okay if I took a minute to just get a sense of who's here and from where. So let me have everybody from the City Council raise your hand so you can see who all of us are here on the City Council. So almost all of us are here tonight. Other city employees who are here, raise your hand. Okay, what about people from BYU? I know there was a couple of you here. Andrew's both. He's so Planning Commission, a handful of people from actually quite a number of you. Thanks for coming tonight. ULCT, I see a number of you. Thank you for coming. Let's see, any developers here? Okay, great. Thank you. Is there a group I missed? Oh, state legislatures and others from the state. I know Marcia's here. Okay, thank you for being here. Anyone else I missed? Great, thank you. Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay. Well, we're really appreciative. Any others? Yes. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to have everyone get a sense of where everyone's from, and we really appreciate you being here. So just picking up on a couple of things that Catrice talked about and just talking about some of the obstacles that are a little bit challenging for us in Provo. Essentially, Provo's problems can kind of be broken down into three main issues. One is the high rental dominance of 62% of housing units in Provo are rented. That doesn't mean that we don't love our students or love renters. We understand that they're a vital part of our population, but we'd like to make sure that people are able to afford ownership if they can. We know that 22% of single-family homes are rented, and as we saw, 58% of attached single-family homes are also rented, and we have this issue that Catrice mentioned of investors purchasing homes and then turning them into rentals. We also know that we have an affordability issue in Provo. We know that's all over the state. I think our affordability issues are colored by the fact that our income level is much lower than many of our neighboring cities on average. And so the gap between the income levels and home prices makes it even a steeper barrier to home ownership. Currently in Provo, the average homeowner is paying around 37% of their household income on housing, which of course is higher than the recommended 30%. We also know that the high cost to income ratio puts significant pressure on potential home buyers, making it difficult to qualify for home loans. And so I'm going to talk through demographics here, but we really want you to focus on the fact that that affordability gap is really affecting young families, first-time home buyers, young single professionals, and middle-income households. And that leaves them with limited options. And of course, that can mean that they're going to go elsewhere. I'll circle back to this point, but I guess in a strictly Darwinian world, we could say, well, if they can't afford it, then they got to go someplace else. And that's how the market decides it. But when most people who are buying homes are over the age of 45, that really ages out, that's not the right term, but sort of eliminates the younger population in our town, doesn't make for a very sustainable community that fills our schools with kids and all the things that we love about our community. So we really want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of everyone if we can. Thirdly, just the high median home prices. The average home in Provo is hovering around $480,000. Although in September of this year, the median listing price was just below $700,000. So even that project that Catrice just mentioned dropped down to as low as mid $500,000, which was a bit of a difficult lift for us to get, and it's still is higher than the average. So not where we want everything to be. If we can get better than that, we need to. So I want to give you sort of a demographic portrait of Provo and just kind of run through 10, I think it's 10 different samples of demographics. Maybe it's not 10. I can't remember the exact number. But anyway, we'll start with the Smith family. So let's imagine Rodney Smith lives in Ogden. He just got a job offer in the Provo Fire Department, which pays $85,000 a year. That's an actual salary for a firefighter in Provo. 65% of the city of Provo earns less than that. That gives you some sobering sense of that salary. So if Rodney's got a wife, Sharon, who stays at home to care for their two kids, and they're looking to buy a house here, their take-home pay monthly is $5,681. They're really not able to save a whole lot of money, but let's imagine that this family has been able to save $30,000 over several years to go towards a down payment. Even with that generous amount saved up, which presumably would have taken them quite a while to amass, unless they had help, they would really only be able to afford a home around $400,000, and only roughly a third of homes in Provo fall within that range. And of course, if you've shopped for homes, you know that very quickly there's non-starters, right? You look at a house and say, well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. So 34% of the market is not available, is only available to them. So let's move to a slightly different scenario. First-time homebuyers, the Reeves. Let's imagine they're both 25 years old. They live in a modest 2-bedroom rental in Provo with their 2 children. And let's imagine that John is a local high school teacher with only one income. They bring in $62,000 or so a year. So that gets us almost at about the 50% rate of income in Provo. 51% of Provo earns less than John and Emily Reeves. That's a pretty important, again, statistic to keep in mind in terms of the numbers of people we're talking about. So their monthly net income is $4,303. Let's imagine that after, well, our staff helped us, this isn't just imaginary, but after rent, food, and medical costs, they really only have about $400 to put away to save every month. So it's going to take them quite a long time to be able to have a down payment to buy a home around $480,000. Their maximum affordable home price is only $291,000. That's only 8% of the market. And again, maybe there's many of those that are just not manageable for them and wouldn't be desirable. So they may be stuck saving money for a very long period of time. I feel like I know some of these people very well, by the way. I'm sure you do too. Okay, single renter, Alex Mercer, 27-year-old graphic designer, makes $45,000 a year. So the income's, in this case, it's going down. 37% of Provo earns less than that. So again, there's still well over a third of our population that's making less than Alex. But if he's paying rent for a 1-bedroom apartment at $1,200 a month, and his take home is only $2,981 a month, very little to save at the end of the month, maybe something as small as $150 a month to save. So Alex is either stuck renting for a very, very long time. We do have scenarios in Provo where maybe Alex decides that renting a 1-bedroom is not sustainable for him. He's going to look for a situation where he can share a rental with roommates. We have scenarios sometimes where, I know this happened in my neighborhood, a father and a son decided to buy a house in my neighborhood and then rent out part of the house to some other people to help pay for the mortgage payment. Of course, in that case, Alex would need a father to do that with, but on his own, he's going to have a really hard time reaching that $480,000. Okay, so let's look at a scenario, Davis family, that's 100% AMI, area median income. Okay, $96,000 a year. Mark and Lisa make money Mark works as a middle manager. 70% of Provo earns less than Mark and Lisa. Their take-home pay is about $6,406 a month. And after all their essentials, they have roughly $1,600 left to save each month. Although that seems pretty frugal to me, but way to go. They're planning to buy a home, but the high cost of real estate in Provo is making it hard. They can afford a $450,000 home, which gives them access to just 38% of the housing market. The Thompsons, let's go to them. Andrew and Jessica are both working professionals with 3 children. These are, of course, fictional names, so don't confuse us with anybody you might know. 2 Together, they earn double income, $144,000. 87% of Provo earns less than they do. So they have a monthly net income of $9,480. So their current 3-bedroom home is becoming too small for their growing family, and they're looking to upgrade. With a budget for a $675,000 home, they can access 63% of the market. Again, that's kind of surprising to me that it's not even fully 2/3 of the market that they have access to. And assuming they're able to save, maybe they have other expenses that make their savings a little less, but that's what we can imagine. So just to wrap up, let's think about some of the challenges that I've mentioned and develop them a little bit more. We have the illegal rental unit problem, where people are converting homes into duplexes. Often they're not seeking rental dwelling licenses from us. They're not going through the proper channels. Their occupancy levels are not according to city code. We also have a problem of developers who prefer to build rent models rather than ownership models. So local families might find themselves competing against investors who have deeper pockets. We are seeing neighborhoods in Provo now where people are bidding, very quickly, and the multiple bids come in, and of course, they often go to the highest bidder. We have further infrastructure limits in our own city. We're trying to fix those. We're trying to address those, but in West Provo and near Provo Canyon, constraints such as sewer limitations have delayed or prevented new housing developments to happen. As of this last January, Provo has entitled over 1,400 units that have not yet been built due to infrastructure and other reasons. That includes over 1,000 multifamily units, 291 townhomes, and 71 single-family homes. And we know that there are resources like the ones that Catrice mentioned, Home Purchase Plus, Own in Provo, Utah First-Time Homebuyer Law Enforcement Grant, the Utah First-Time Homebuyer Program. These are all very helpful. I was talking to Karen McCandless at Community Action Services earlier today, and she tells me that there's a class they offer there regularly that they said about 1/3 of the people who take that class end up being successful, which is really terrific. 2/3 are unsuccessful, however. And there are a lot of people who don't know about these programs, don't know about how to handle the bureaucracy of them. And there are some limitations placed on them. Applicants for Home Purchase Plus are not considered unless they're already under contract. There's also first come, first served basis for some of these programs. So it can make things challenging for lots of people. So again, when we consider income and affordability, the price to income ratio is really steep in Provo. And that really creates a problem. We know right now that rentals, residents often contribute about 22% of their median salary toward housing, whereas owners, as I mentioned, 37%. So for a lot of people, it's cheaper to rent than it would be, even if they could get the down payment to pay the mortgage every month. So that, of course, may lock some people into perpetual rental situations. Finally, one last issue is that penalty options for landlords and investors who violate the code are limited. According to state code, we can't punish landlords more than $1,000 fine. So there's not a lot of incentive or disincentive for them to avoid that. We hear a lot from students in Provo. I was talking to our table here about this, who feel like they are mistreated by landlords and jerked around, and sometimes the rules change on them midstream, or they're not given due consideration, and landlord's not taking good care of the property. We would love to have help from the state legislature to really crack down on that and fix that problem so that they feel like they have a voice in their situation. Oftentimes they don't know enough even about what access or rights they have. So we'd like to try to figure that problem out together. So let me just conclude by saying that, this income to housing cost ratio is really a big problem for us. 85% of homes sold in 2022 were for 80% AMI and above. We saw that graph earlier. That's really not meeting the needs of the vast majority of the people in Provo. And again, I'll just emphasize how important it is that we meet the needs of every demographic in the city so that we have a diverse, thriving, young and old, lower and higher income population that can send their kids to school and can thrive here. We don't want all of the students who graduate here, many of whom want to stay here and want to settle here or want to start businesses here. We don't want them to go elsewhere. We'd like to see the city have a steady stream of people coming in and staying and doing well. And we hope to solve that with you. So thanks so much. Oh, and now I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Whipple.
Hello, my friends. I'd like to also note that Mayor Michelle Kafusi has joined us. Thank you for coming. We're so glad that you're able to fit us in. All right. So we have been thinking about this for quite a while, and we've got some proposed solutions that we think that you, our policymaking partners, can help us with to make housing more attainable for the people who want to live in our city. These legislative solutions will not only help the families who are currently struggling to buy a home, but also address broader issues such as these illegal rental units and infrastructure development. Because after all, if we've got tenants in illegal rentals, they're in a very vulnerable and precarious situation, and it makes it harder for them to be stable members of our community. So let's explore how some of these proposed changes could impact various Provo citizens. So one of the ways to help. George mentioned that we've got a growing issue with investors purchasing single-family homes and converting them into illegal rental units, often without proper licensing. This often results in over-occupancy and violation of the renter's rights. Currently, the maximum penalty for violating city ordinances is a $1,000 fine, or there's the threat of imprisonment. That's clearly not going to happen. So this is not enough to deter investors. $1,000 is just a cost of doing business. And if we have the situation where we see the overoccupancy and we give them a notice violation, the way they cure it is by kicking those tenants out who incur lots of expenses from a sudden move. They have to find a new place to live. They may do it in the guise of an eviction, which makes it harder for them to find new housing, or they just choose not to renew their lease. And since these are often month-to-month leases, it's very, very easy for somebody to lose their housing with less than a month's notice. We would love if there were some sort of recompense or some sort of protection here. So the legislative ask, we're requesting that an amendment to Utah Code 103703 to allow cities like Provo to create stricter penalties and raise that penalty cap for property use violations. So this would give us a little bit more control over these illegal conversions, ensuring that more homes remain available for families who want to buy. This could help to disincentivize some landlords who are owning so many units just because it's a money thing for them. We'd also love to explore other options, like ways that we could address property owners who choose not to abate a health safety issue like mold in their apartment before they re-let it to a new set of tenants who run into the same problems. There's so much demand for housing right now. Our vacancy rate for rentals is below 4%. So if you get your lease terminated, there's always going to be somebody who's going to move into that unit and experience the same deficient conditions that you had before. And as a city, we have no way to protect our tenants or to really enforce on these landlords, and no way to reward the good landlords who are taking care of their tenants. Next thing, We would love limits on the number of units that investors or investor groups can own. So we propose that legislation be drafted that creatively limits or significantly poses a disincentive to investors for the number of housing units that a single investor or group can own in a designated residential area, particularly in new developments. The number of units owned statewide by a single entity could also be limited. I'm sure you've heard the stories in other states, municipalities, where you have these big investor groups coming and buying huge swaths of the housing stock. And they're essentially creating monopolies. And it hurts those cities and the people who try to live there. Next, development agreements. Cities need more flexibility to ensure that new developments are balanced between these rental models and ownership models. Currently, one of the only tools that we have to guarantee owner occupancy or for sale units is through development agreements. Now, the city cannot propose the development agreement. We cannot say, these are the conditions upon which we will grant this for you. These can only be proffered or proposed by the developer. So here's our ask. We would like some changes that would allow cities like Provo to request more development agreements, giving us the power to influence that ratio of rental versus for sale units in new developments and fulfill our general plan goals and moderate income housing strategies. This would also be an advantage to the people who want to develop in our city because we could very clearly state, this is what we need. And this is your path for a successful development in our city. Instead of playing this little game of, well, would you like this? Would you like this? No, this is much more direct. And for business people, this is a very helpful thing. All right, next set on ways to help. Renters who want to buy a house. So currently the state offers a first-time home buyer program for law enforcement. We believe that this program should be expanded to include additional essential community personnel. So here's our ask. Expand that law enforcement first-time homebuyer program to include firefighters, teachers, other essential workers, such as those working in healthcare. Nurses do not make that much money, and we absolutely need them, and we want them living in our communities. Next thing, a first-time home ownership program expansion. While we do support the expansion of supply to alleviate the housing crisis, we also need programs that address financing challenges for existing homes for homeownership, especially in a legacy city with the majority of our land that has already been developed and built out. So here's our ask. We propose that the first-time homeowner program be expanded to allow those purchasers to get existing builds, not just new construction, especially in cities like Provo. And also that the maximum purchase price be increased, because looking at the stock in our city, if that price is not increased, they're still priced out of the market. The program won't accomplish its goals. Next way to help, convert existing rentals into owner-occupied housing. Okay, many single-family homes in Provo are being converted into rental units. We propose a partnership with the state in the creation of an owner occupancy overlay zone that will encourage home ownership. Our ask is that we develop the system so that homes sold in designated residential areas must be sold to owner occupiers who will live in the home, actually occupy it for at least 1 year. In addition, if a rental property, so a single family home that's been used as a rental by an investor, if that is being sold, the current tenants should have a 90-day notice that this property is being sold and be given a right of first refusal to purchase the home. Furthermore, landlords who sell properties in these zones could potentially receive a capital gains tax rebate once the home has been occupied by an owner for a certain number of designated years. This would make them parting with that investment rental property a little bit more attractive. Not only do they not have the hassle of dealing with tenants and maintenance and everything like that, but they also will get a little bit of money coming back to them. So in conclusion, with these legislative changes and more that we would love to work on with you, because we are sure you have good ideas too, we can ensure that more people who live in Provo or who want to live in Provo have a path to home ownership, whether it's expanding the first-time homeowner or home buyer programs, tightening enforcement against landlords who illegally rent out units, or improving infrastructure for new developments. These solutions are vital for creating a balanced and affordable housing market in our city. We ask our state legislators to support these initiatives to help our residents achieve their dream of owning a home. Our staff will be reaching out to you regarding these issues and the next steps. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, George and Rachel. You can tell who does public speaking for their living between court and teaching. Thank you so much for coming. We really, really appreciate it. We have tried to make this brief. We have left plenty of information for you at the table to look at later. Our staff will send out soft copies to you also if they haven't already. We'd love you to give it to your friends and influential others who are involved in this state and local government. But are there any questions for us? We are the anything that you might want to add, ideas that you have, things that you'd like to see happening, or ideas that you have for the state legislature, or things in the housing market. We're open to questions. We're open to talking one with another and getting to know each other a little bit better. But we didn't want to take up too much of your time or force you to be here too late. So anybody inclined to say anything or ask anything?
What is your housing stock like in terms of single family or duplexes? Are they in good shape? Or could you have a program where you do a self-help, where you, the homeowner would work with contractor to bring it up to code and they purchase it? Provo.
We worked with self-help a lot in the past. We haven't been currently working with them lately, but we definitely have a lot of older stock that needs the update, right? And that's one hindrance for people going in because they are the lower priced homes, but then they're so expensive to maybe get up to code or, redo the wiring or, so much work needs to be done on it that becomes an issue. So we are very interested in things that would help someone remodel or redo a home that is, we have pioneer homes that we want to save, those kinds of things, so we can reuse our stock and have it more livable.
How old our houses are. Doesn't say what condition they are, but it has the year that these things were built. And we can extrapolate that.
There is a program right now in the state, so I'm happy to get that information to you.
I would love that. Thank you. Nick. Nick is with IHC.
See, can you guys hear me? A question about the land trust. We talked about it briefly. I'm curious, how many units are in the land trust now? Is it sort of actively developing projects?
So we have property that's a house for 30.
You guys can give me a microphone. We have land that we want to develop. And so right now, we're starting with a small project of 6 townhomes. But we are looking for partners. One thing that people don't think about with land trusts is that if people wanted to donate their homes, so maybe people that live in Provo that don't have heirs, they can donate their house to the land trust, and then we can turn around and sell that to a family. So there's all kinds of options within the land trust for purchasing.
But it is newer for us, Nick. And
Yeah.
so we are just starting our projects now and getting land into the land trust. And so our first project will be the 6 townhomes that we're doing.
Thanks, helpful.
Thank you. We are,
actually have a couple.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have some other comments. My other question would be, are you considering making sure that these homes are visitable with one no step entrance, always wide enough, and a bathroom on the main floor? I mean, a bedroom also. Because this way people can age in place, and we have a lot of stock with lots of stairs and lots of, fancy.
That's an
I guess you could say
excellent
the
point.
three-way thing.
Yeah,
I think it's really a good idea to, look at and make sure we have that type of stock.
that's an excellent point. Sarah and I can keep that in mind because we're on that board. Steve.
And then I have another, go ahead. All right. I'll go through my list. Okay. So my other question is about the unrelated people living in the home. I'm wondering if you can do an exemption for seniors. So,
We do have an exemption for seniors.
okay.
And we actually just lowered that age. We lowered it to 60. So it used to be 65. We just lowered it to 60. And so there is an exemption and there's an easier process for those people to have a legal ADU in their house. Steve Waldrop.
Thank you. Just a quick question. What kind of resources does the city have to dedicate to, maybe a matching program with the state for the rehabilitation and conversion of rental homes, single family rentals that are currently in a not so great state? Do you have CDBG funding? Do you have RDA 10% funds withheld?
So we do have some RDA. We are using some of it to go towards the 6 townhomes we just mentioned, but we do have other money sitting there. I think it's around $1 million to $2 million. And then we do get CDBG funds every year. Now that has lowered significantly. Like this year, Melissa Manali could speak to it specifically, but I know that those numbers have lowered significantly than even when I was first on the council. So there's that's one of those, there's so many wants for those funds and they are a lot less than they used to be. So hopefully that improves over time, but those are 2 options that we have, but those monies are specifically for these kinds of programs. Thank you. Well, we just want to thank everyone so much for coming. We really, really appreciate it. And we have another question. Yes, this is one of our new planning commissioners.
Hello, thanks. Yeah, one question I have, on the Provo City General Plan, we talk about, it calls out infill development as one of the priorities for the overall housing strategy. As was mentioned earlier, with greenfield development, it can be more expensive. It can be difficult because of the infrastructure costs, compared to like redevelopment. Yeah, just kind of what's like the vision of how that plays in with our overall housing strategy?
That's definitely something that's come to us, right? We've done multiple infill developments in some of these pioneer neighborhoods where they have bigger lots and they have the space to do that. So that's definitely something that is an option for Provo. Have we sent out the soft copies yet to everybody, Malia? Okay, great. We will send that out tomorrow and not tomorrow, Monday. And we would love it if people like Marcia Judkins and those who are in the state, Steve Waldrop, anyone else, Cam, to pass those on to other people so that they can be educated on some of the things we're thinking at and looking at. I know there's other cities probably like us, but we are unique too. And we really wanted to focus on some of the particular issues that we struggle with in our housing. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.